Hi, I'm Sam, and recently I took it upon myself to build my very first gaming computer completely from scratch, which, given that I know literally zero about how to build a computer, was a decision on my part. I also decided, do you know what, I'm going to film the entire thing, because I need content for my YouTube channel. But what I actually ended up doing was filming myself having a heart attack a number of times because I thought I'd destroyed thousands of pounds worth of equipment. But I've edited all of that out, so it might look semi-professional. Apart from the fact I've just admitted this in the intro. On with the show. First up we have the motherboard. This bit wasn't too bad, to be honest, apart from that one line in the manual that let me know if I touched the wrong part with just a slight static charge built up, I might just fry the entire thing. The CPU was equally fine to begin with. The whole thing fitted quite logically into the board, and the analogy that my more knowledgeable Twitter friends had given me, that computer building was essentially expensive Lego, was holding pretty true up to this point. The little lever that lifted up and down to allow you to place the CPU in and then lock it in place was fantastic. The whole thing just made sense, and I had assumed this was how things were going to continue. When it came to the CPU fan, I started to realise there may be more to this than I was anticipating. The instructions to fit the fan made it seem relatively easy, but when it actually came to doing it, I couldn't help but feel I was going to snap something or damage either the CPU or the motherboard while I was getting it on. In hindsight, I was probably being overly cautious because these parts are literally designed to fit together. But in my defence, I had spent the week leading up to this build having anxiety daydreams about bricking the entire thing, so perhaps you can cut me some slack. The fitting of the fan was also the first time I came face to face with the headers on the motherboard, and let me tell you, I am not a fan. I'm sure many a computer scientist will tell me that they're designed the way they are for a very good reason, but from my new perspective, I kept feeling like I was going to snap one of the contacts off if I was just that little bit too heavy-handed. I also at this point wished that they clicked into place, but later on when I had to plug and unplug a few during the cable management, I realised exactly why they don't. You can see me here umming and ahhing about where the cable for the CPU fan LEDs should go, and that's because the manual actually tells you to wrap it around the back of the fan. But given that the header I was connecting to was literally right there next to where it came out of the fan, I opted to just connect it straight up and cable manage it later. The RAM was also a point where the installation seemed a lot simpler on paper. I mean, theoretically they just click into place, but the amount of force that I was putting behind them, it seemed like I was on course to snap either a RAM stick or the entire motherboard in half. I mean, again, I was probably being too cautious with the whole thing. All these computer parts just seem so flimsy in my massive clumsy hands, and as someone who regularly almost breaks his own toes just walking around the house, I wasn't really ready to take any chances. Here's that bit of cable management I talked about earlier. I didn't actually film the cable management of the entire computer once I'd put everything together, but I did send a picture of it to my friend who actually works with computers for a living, and in his own words, it's not bad, which, to be completely honest with you, is a compliment I will take for my first ever attempt. Now, as you may be able to tell, the installation of the storage drive was at the same point that the camera decided to just completely sabotage me with autofocus and white balance. So out of the gate, I apologise that this is the only footage I have of the installation. Eagle-eyed viewers may also be able to notice that I'm actually installing the drive in the wrong place here as well. I did fix this later on once I realised, but at that point the motherboard was already fully installed inside the case, and so I couldn't really film the procedure. So enjoy this testament to everything that can go wrong, going wrong all at once and on camera for everyone to see. It's kind of poetic really, but then again I never was much of a poet according to my English teacher. Now comes the time to install the components into the case. I was originally planning to do the entire build inside the case, but the same friend who bigged up my amateur cable managing skills, and who was in fact on call during this entire process, to listen to my neurotic / downright paranoid at times questions, informed me it'd be much easier to do as much as possible on the motherboard outside the case. And to be honest, he was probably completely right. Some of the more stress-inducing parts of the build took place inside the case, and so the fact I was able to keep the time spent trying to juggle a torch and a screwdriver to an absolute minimum was a blessing. I guess the people in IT departments do know what they're on about sometimes. It isn't all Google and turning it on and off again. There we are, one motherboard successfully installed. Just connect up a few easy cables such as the LEDs that run to the front panels, and we're ready for the next big component. Oh, by the way, I still hate these connections. Next up we have the graphics card. The one we're installing here is actually a temporary part of the build until the actual planned one has been delivered. I was one of the lucky folk who managed to get an order through for a 3080 at the original launch price, and as long as I keep my order open, for now, I will get it at that price. Some people may say waiting over 6 months in a queue for a card is silly of me, but so far I've dropped over 850 places to be sat, at time of recording 25 places from receiving my card, so I'm pretty happy to hold out for now. I mean, it's not as if the computer doesn't run well with the temporary card anyway. I just have to trace a few less rays for now. Power supply now are one of the few major speed bumps in the road to building this computer. You can see me here testing the PSU to make sure it works, but the fan was so quiet that for a short amount of time we didn't actually think the unit worked. I mean, mostly because I was holding it upside down and so I couldn't see the fan spinning. I'm not a clever man sometimes, okay? That wasn't the biggest problem I faced with the unit though, because seeing as I ordered it from America, it only came with a US plug, so I had to get a replacement cable delivered overnight from Amazon so I could power it up the next day. To be honest, the poor Amazon man was probably sick of the sight of me by the end of the week I built this computer, because I legitimately think I had a different thing delivered every day, as I thought of more and more things that I needed. From extra fans to improve the airflow within the case, to some special cable covers to stop my nibble-happy cats from killing the build, or more importantly, themselves. Finally, we have the technically not required optional extra in this build, the USB Type-C cable. The case I ordered came with the slot for the USB-C, but without the cable as standard to connect it to the motherboard. Honestly, I probably could have got away with not having it, but I'm the sort of person who it would bother, and so for the small extra price I ordered the cable and connected it all up myself. This was legitimately the most fiddly part of the build. The cable comes out the top of the case, and so everything here was being carried out at potentially the least convenient angle available, short of actually hanging upside down from the ceiling. I mean, could I technically have laid the case down on its side to do all of this at a better angle? Yes, maybe, but I like making my own life hard. So there we have it, my first ever build completed. Would I do it all again knowing what I do now? To be honest, yeah, probably. It may have been an immensely stressful process at times, but it was also a lot of fun. Thanks to all of you who've made it through this far with me. I hope the entire process wasn't too painful to watch. Hang around after the credits to get a short glimpse of exactly how much of a basic nerd I'm being with this computer now it's built. Like and subscribe and all that, and I'll see you next time.